is true, the other statement will imply. Okay, so that is the meaning of if and only if. A non-empty subset W of V is a subspace of V if and only if for each pair of vectors alpha comma beta is in W. Okay, and each scalar C in F. Okay, each scalar C in F, the vector C alpha plus beta is again in W. Okay, so this is what C alpha plus beta if is in W, then it is a subspace. Then if you take W as a subspace, then it will be satisfying this property. C alpha plus beta is again in W. That is the meaning of this. Okay, so what we want to prove that. Okay, so let us write that. So W is a subspace. Okay, maybe we'll write we want to prove that. Okay, we want to prove that W is a subspace. W is a subspace of V if and only if this is true, right? C alpha plus beta is in W. For every alpha and beta is in W, and then C is in F. This is what we have to prove. Now we want to prove this means first you can assume first thing. Okay, first you assume that W is a subspace of V, and then we prove that this combination is true. C alpha plus beta should be in W. And in converse part, you assume that C alpha plus beta is in W, and then we prove that W is a subspace of V. This is what we want to do it. Okay, we'll assume that W is a subspace of V, and we prove that this is true. And other way is that we assume that C alpha plus beta is in W implies that W is a subspace of V. Okay. So suppose we consider the other way first, and then we'll come back to the second way. Because if you consider W is a subspace, then it's the other way is straightforward. So we'll first consider this is true. Okay. First we suppose that. Okay. First we suppose that W is a non-empty subset of V. Okay, I'm just writing mathematically. W is a subset of V and which is non-empty. Okay, such that this is true. Let us take C alpha plus beta is in W for every alpha comma beta. Okay, for every alpha comma beta is in W. This statement is true. Let us assume that this statement is true. So W is a subset of V and such that C alpha plus beta is true. Now we want to prove that W is a subspace of V. We prove that W is a subspace of we prove that W is a subspace of V. Okay, so as we know earlier, like okay, let me go back to that previous pages. What we had stated for subspace. Okay, just see this. Okay, this is the definition we have given. So if I want to say something is a subspace, okay, V is any vector space and W is any subset of V, and we say that W is a subspace of V. These are the properties. I mean, alpha comma beta. If I take, then alpha plus beta must be in that, and zero must be in that set. Okay, and then for every alpha there is a minus alpha also in that set. Okay, and then for every alpha is in W. Okay, for every alpha is in W, then C is in F, C alpha is in W. These are the thing. These are the properties. We have to just see that. that is actually once again that is straightforward. Why I am saying that this combination is true. Okay, we are assuming that this combination is true, and then depending upon this combination, one can easily verify that that will satisfy all these conditions. Okay, so now let us see that we are given, so W is any non-empty. Since W is non-empty, so non-empty means at least one vector exists. Okay, non-empty means there is some element is there in that. Okay, that is not an empty set. Okay, so there is something exists. So that means that empty set means it is not an empty set means it can be zero also, right? Zero also. So empty set means this is an empty set. But if set which has some elements means it can be something like the 0, 1, 2, 3, something like this. Okay. So if W is non-empty means there is a, let us take, there is a vector, okay, there is a vector, let's say that vector rho is in W such that we'll take this condition. So rho plus minus rho equal to 0 should be in W. Because of non-empty, so 0 will be automatically in W because it is a non-empty set. If it is a non-empty set means at least one vector is existing. So at least one vector is existing which will satisfy rho plus minus rho equal to 0, because this is already true that alpha plus beta is true. I am taking rho as a vector and C is a minus 1. So therefore it is true that rho plus minus rho equal to 0, which is obvious from this. C alpha plus beta is in W. So and also W is non-empty. From that we are getting this thing. So now you take now if you take this is one condition now we have seen. Now if I take alpha is any vector, alpha because it is non-empty, now we take alpha is a vector. Of course you can take a row also, that is not an issue. Alpha is a vector, okay, any vector, and C is any scalar. Okay, and C is any scalar. Now one can easily see that C alpha plus beta is there in W. We'll assume that C alpha plus beta is in W. It is there. Now I'm writing C alpha, beta I'm taking as 0. So this is nothing but C alpha is in W. Beta I'm taking as 0. In particular, I'm taking beta as 0. So because this combination is always true, every step I can consider this combination. Okay, C alpha plus beta is in W. Every step I can consider. So C alpha plus beta, beta in particular I'm taking as 0 because this is true for all values of alpha and beta. So therefore C alpha plus beta is equal to C alpha, which is in W. So this is the condition of your second. Of course, that minus you can easily verify that because you can, because the scalar C alpha is in W. So C, if I take C is equal to minus 1, so minus 1 into alpha, which is minus alpha, is always there. Okay, so this is also again in W, so there is no problem. Minus alpha is in W and then minus alpha also in W, because we can have this combination minus 1 into alpha plus 0, which is same as minus alpha plus 0, or you can say like this, minus alpha plus 0 is in W. So therefore the finally we can say that if alpha and beta is in W, so alpha plus beta is also in W. In this case, I am taking C equal to 1. Okay, alpha and beta is also in W. So therefore, it is once again straightforward. If I assume that C alpha plus beta is in W, it will satisfy all these four properties easily, quickly. Okay, by taking a scalar, because that C is nothing but a scalar. You choose any scalar, any scalar value, so that will satisfy all these properties. So which implies that one can easily say that W is a subspace of V. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the other way is true. Why I'm saying that other way is true, that straightforward, because of the last property you see. The last property, if I assume that W is a subspace, the last property is nothing but alpha plus beta is in W. But since C is any scalar, if I multiply with C is in this, it is also in that W only, because that is nothing but you are multiplying with some scalar. Alpha I'm choosing as, let's say, alpha I am choosing as, instead of alpha, one can choose 2 alpha, and one can choose 3 alpha, one can choose 4 alpha. So anything can be chosen because that those are scalars. That is once again it will be in that set only. So therefore the other way is straightforward. So we can simply state that conversely, okay, we can simply say that conversely, Conversely, if W is a subspace of V, W is a subspace of V. Okay, so if W is a subspace of V, then it is obvious that C alpha plus beta is in W. For every alpha comma beta is in W, and C is a scalar is in F. Okay, so this is straightforward. Certainly you can have this proof because of the last property as I told you earlier. So the alpha plus beta is in W. That is true because W is a subspace, and if I multiply with some number with this is again in W. So that is, you can generalize that C alpha plus beta should be in W. Okay, for every alpha comma beta is in W. For every scalar, C is in F. F is a field. Okay, so now this property can be used to check W is a subspace. You don't need to verify now these four properties. Whenever some problem is given to you, now you can simply verify this condition whether this is true or not. C alpha plus beta, if two vectors are given, you can just simply see this alpha plus beta is in W or not. Then if you multiply C alpha plus beta, it should be also in the W. If so, then you can say that W is a subspace of a vector space V. Okay, so this is one result we have done. Okay, so the other results, the other important result, as I told you, only these two results are there for your subspaces. Of course, there are in higher level there are many theorems are there, but we don't go for that. We'll just do some important theorems only, and then we'll more focus on problems also. So the next important theorem, as I told you last class, if you take any collection of subspaces, means their intersection is also once again subspaces. Okay, so if you take W1, W2, as I told you, if you take collection of subspaces, means this one. Let us take W is nothing but it is a W1, W2, etc. Let us take, we have a Wn. Okay, these are the collections we have, and their intersection. Now we'll see that their intersection summation over I, Wi. Okay, I runs from 1 to n, whether this is also a subspace or not. Okay, so that we can give us a theorem. Okay, we can state this as a theorem and we'll prove that. So we have this following theorem. Okay, so let V be a vector space over F. Okay, that is always true. Let V be a vector space. We will take in everything. We'll take V is a vector space. Okay, let V be a vector space over F. Okay, let V be a vector space over F. Okay, then the intersection of any collection. The intersection of any collection subspaces of V is again a subspace. Okay, so intersection of any collection of subspace of V, yeah, again a subspace. So each one of them are subspaces. W1, W2, etc. W1 are subspaces. Each one of them are subspaces of vector space V. Okay, and then we have to see that their intersection is also subspaces. That's it. Okay, that's what we have to see. Very simple proof. Okay, so let's have a proof of this. Okay, so let us take let W1, okay, let W1 comma W2 etc. W n. Okay, let us take W1 to Wn be the subspaces of vector space V. Okay, now we have to see their intersection is also subspaces. Okay, now we have to show that we'll take the intersection will give us some notation, that is W. Let W is equal summation over I. Okay, W I runs from 1 to n. I runs from 1 to n. Let W is equal to this. We'll take this as W. Now, if you want to say this intersection is a subspace, means W is a subspace. Now we have to show that. We have to show that. We have to show that W is a subspace. Or WI is a subspace. Okay, now that is what we have to prove it. Now one thing we are given that each of them are subspaces, w1 w2 etc w1 are subspaces, though it is straightforward. Why I'm saying if something is true for w1, that is true for w2 also, because their intersection is there. Okay, so intersection is there. So if something is true for w1 and then w2 etc w1, their intersection is also there. So if there is an intersection, so then the proof is straightforward only. You don't need to worry about much. Okay, so we don't need more analysis. So we'll take that. Okay, we'll take that w1 w2 etc wn, so that we can take that collection as w alpha. This is rwn. Other way of saying that, this we take this as a wi, this set notation. We'll write w1 to wn as nothing but set notation. I runs from 1 to n. This is also the other way of writing is. Now we'll take that set that represents there are n number of vectors in that. Okay, the set, if you write wi, that represents there are n number of vectors in that. Okay, so we'll use that. Since each wi each wi is subspace of V. Okay, this implies that, okay, zero vector will be in that wi. So zero vector will be wi will be much, zero will be in w1, w2 etc in wn. So which implies that zero will be in intersection of wi. So you see, each wi is subspace of V. That means that is what we have assumed, that w1 w2 etc w1 are the subspace of V. So therefore subspace, by the definition of subspace, zero must be there. So 0 belongs to wi, which implies that 0 belongs to w1, w2 etc wn. So which implies that 0 belongs to intersection of wi. One is true. So zero vector is that wi. So what is the meaning of that? Zero vector. Okay, zero vector is in intersection of wi, which means that the intersection of wi is w. So that means that w is non-empty. W is non-empty implies that intersection of wi is also non-empty. So if it is a non-empty, as usual, if it is non-empty means there is something is there. Okay, at least one, at least some of the vectors are there in that. So we'll take those vectors. So now if we take, let alpha comma beta is in W. If you take alpha comma beta is in W, but it implies that what? Alpha comma beta is in W. Alpha comma beta will be, okay, intersection of, by the definition of W, both alpha comma beta. Okay, so W is nothing but intersection of wi. So W equal intersection of wi. This is true for intersection of wi. Okay, so intersection of wi means what? So alpha comma beta belongs to each one of them, w1, w2 etc wn. Okay, alpha comma beta belongs to w1, w2 etc wn, which means that what? W1 is a subspace, w2 is subspace, wn are subspaces. Since w1, w2 etc wn are subspaces, then C alpha plus beta belongs to W1, also it is belongs to W2, also it is belongs to W1 by the previous theorem. Okay, by the previous theorem, if something is a subspace, then this is true. C alpha plus beta is in W1, and W2 is also subspace, W3 is also subspace, etc. W1. So which implies that C alpha plus beta is again intersection of Wi. So therefore, if I take alpha comma beta, let us come back here. We take alpha comma beta is in W, and then we are able to prove that alpha comma beta is in intersection of wi, but then we are giving notation as W. So it implies that intersection wi is again a subspace. Okay, so very simple algebraic thing we have used here. Very simple analysis only we have used, and only thing is that we have used the concept w1, w2, etc., wn are subspaces. Okay, so because of that thing only we are just first we are trying to show that it is a non-empty. So that means at least there is some element is there in that. And if it is a non-empty, now we can take two vectors alpha comma beta is in w. So if it is in w, because we are giving a notation w is equal to intersection of wy, and then alpha comma beta is in intersection of wy. If it is an intersection of wy, then it must be true that it is there in every w. So therefore it is there in all w1, w2, etc., wn. Now we'll come back. w1, w2, etc., wn are subspaces. Therefore by the definition, c alpha plus beta is in w1, is in w2, is in wn. So if it is so, then it is there in the intersection also. So therefore their intersection is also true. Therefore c alpha plus beta is in w. So therefore intersection wi is again a subspace of v. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These two things I would like to mention. Okay, so we have done these two proof we have done. So now the next important thing, maybe we might have studied in that first year also, that linearly independent and linearly dependent. Suppose we are given some a collection of vectors. Okay, suppose we are given a collection of vectors. Let's say v1. Oh, sorry. Let's say v1, v2, v3, etc. Okay, okay, vn vn tech. Okay, we can consider till vn also, there is no problem. So we are given a collection of vectors v1, v2, v3, etc., vn. Okay, so now we want to say that whether these vectors are independent or dependent. Okay, so independent means that's the word itself describes what is independent, right? Independent means one is not depending on other. Okay, so v1 is not depending on v2, v2 is not depending on v3, etc. Okay, so therefore one is not depending on other, so that is called an independent. So each one of them are independent. But if it is dependent means, that is also once again that's a similar way of saying that v1 can be expressed as twice of v2, or v2 can be expressed as twice of v3, or v3 can be expressed as something like that. Twice means you can use any number. So therefore one is not independently there and it is depending on the other vectors. Those are the concepts are called linearly independent vectors or linearly dependent vectors. Okay, so now let's state let's give a definition, and then we'll discuss some problems. Okay. So the other way, okay, you don't need to define two things separately. We define only one thing. The other way is saying that if it is not linearly independent, it is a linearly dependent. Or other way is saying that if it is not linearly dependent, then it is linearly independent. That's it. So we'll define one definition, and the other way we'll say quickly. We'll have a definition. Linearly dependent and linearly independent. So linearly dependent and linearly independent. As usual, okay, we'll take V is a vector space. We'll take let V be a vector space. Let V be a vector space over the field F, and mathematical notation. Okay, S is a subset of V, is said to be linearly dependent. linearly dependent if, okay, linearly dependent if, okay, so there are distinct vectors. Okay, if there are distinct vectors, if there are distinct vectors alpha 1, alpha 2, etc., alpha n in S, and scalars C1, C2, etc., Cn, all these scalars are numbers, okay, that is in field. In F, not all of which this scalar, all of which are 0, such that this combination is true, okay, alpha 1 C1 plus alpha 2 C2 plus alpha n Cn equal to 0. Okay, so we are talking about linearly dependent. You see, we are talking about linearly dependent. So we have taken a set S, and then that set is said to be linearly dependent. So there are vectors alpha 1 to alpha is in S, and there are scalars C1 to Cn such that this combination is true, provided that, okay, provided that not all scalars are 0. Which that means it can happen that some scalars are 0. It can happen. It should be there that at least one scalar should not be 0. That is the meaning of that. At least one or two scalars should not be 0, but not all of them are 0. But whereas linearly independent means all the scalars must be 0. Okay, so which means that the Ci's are not equal to 0 for some I. Okay, Ci's are not equal to 0 for some I, or Ci can be 0 for some I. Ci's are not equal to 0 for, you can define two different way. Ci's are not equal to 0. It can happen that for all I, or it can 0 for some I only. So there are two possibilities are there. But in case of linearly independent, this each scalars must be 0. Okay, if a set is said to be linearly independent, then alpha 1 C1 plus alpha 0, etc., alpha and Cn equal to 0 implies that C1 must be 0, C2 must be 0, etc., Cn must be 0. So that is what the other way of saying that is a linearly independent. Of course, I'm not going to write that separately. So now we can write as another definition. A set which is not linearly dependent. A set which is not linearly dependent, which is not linearly dependent, linearly dependent is called linearly independent. Okay, a set which is called linearly dependent is called linearly independent. Okay, the other way of saying that, okay, suppose you consider, okay, implies that suppose we consider alpha 1 C1 plus etc., alpha n Cn are 0, which implies that all these scalars must be 0. C1 equal to 0, equal to C2, equal to etc., equal to Cn. All scalars must be 0. If that is so, then one can say it is a linearly independent set. Okay, one usual example that we'll be repeating this example every time. Okay, okay. So of course, first we consider in R3, then that can be extended for Rn also. This is sometimes called the standard basis. Of course, the basis also we will come back now. Maybe tomorrow's class. Tomorrow we don't have class. Maybe next class we shall discuss the basis also. In that basis also, that is called the standard basis of Rn or R3, whatever dimension you take. Okay, so that is depending upon that. So we'll take the simple vectors, we'll take these vectors. We already know this vector also. One simple example we can just straight away that, let us take alpha 1 equal to 1 0 0, alpha 2 is 0 1 0, alpha 3 is 0 comma 0 comma 1. By looking at this example only, I can say that directly that 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1 is not dependent, because you see that the numbers are different. So therefore I cannot able to write that alpha 1 equal twice of alpha 2 plus alpha 3, or alpha 1 plus alpha 2 equal to alpha 3. None of the combination will be true. That may not exist. Okay, that's a straightforward. But anyway, let us have the combination. That means we have to see that this vectors, set of vectors alpha 1 alpha 2 alpha 3 are Li or not, linearly independent or not. Okay, that's what you have to see. So for that, we'll take this one C1 alpha 1, C2 alpha 2, C3 alpha 3 equal to 0. Okay, C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 plus C3 alpha 3 equal to 0. That is what you have to consider. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, okay, now that's a straightforward. If you take C1 into alpha 1 is what? 1, 0, 0 plus C2 into alpha 2 is 0, 1, 0 plus C3 into alpha 3 is 0, comma 0, comma 1. This is equal to 0. Of course, 0, comma 0, comma 0 you can take. That's a vector. So you just multiply inside, that is C1, comma 0, comma 0 plus 0, comma C2, comma 0 plus 0, comma 0, comma C3. So this is a vector addition. Okay. So now we will this is addition of the first component and the second component, third component. This implies that C1, comma C2, comma C3 equal 0, or 0 vector can be expressed as 0, comma 0, comma 0, which implies that all Ca's are 0. C1 equal to 0, C2 equal to 0, C3 equal to 0. So therefore, it is called linearly independent vector. Therefore, the vectors alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, or you can say as a set notation, this is alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3 are linearly independent. Linearly independent. As I told you that this can be expressed, let us take a set of element vectors in Rn, or you can take that as a vectors. Let's take E1. E1 is, it's a standard notation for E1. Okay, 1, 0, 0, etc. 0. And then E2, it can be extended, okay, in Fn. 0, comma 1, comma 0, etc. 0. Etc. You can define En is nothing but 0, comma 0, comma 0. The nth coefficient will be 1. Okay, the nth term will be 1. So this is called a standard basis in Rn. So then what can we just see that by the previous only we can generalize this one are linearly independent. E1, E2, E3, etc. En are linearly independent. That is the straightforward. One can say that it is the linearly independent vectors. Okay, so these are the thing we can talk about linearly independent and then linearly dependent. Okay, one more example. Maybe we can have the one example for linearly dependent also. Suppose you consider this example. Okay, in F3 means the you have that in the vectors will have only three numbers. Okay, three numbers will have. So, but it can have a four vectors, it can have a five vectors, it can have a six vectors. That is not a problem. Okay, in F3 we define these vectors, following vectors. Let us take alpha 1 is we have 3, comma 0, comma minus 3, and then alpha 2 we take minus 1, comma 1, comma 2. Okay, and then alpha 3 we can take 4, comma 2, comma minus 2, and then alpha 4 we can take 2, comma 1, comma 1. Now verify that alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4 are linearly independent or linearly dependent or not. Okay, I'll just give you some time. Just verify and tell me the answer. And you have to tell me the relation also. Not just it is a linearly dependent. You have to tell me the relation. What are the relation? Just find it out and tell me the answer. So the answer is linearly dependent. Okay, the answer is linearly dependent. Just to tell me that, well, what is the combination? Okay, uh, how the vectors can be expressed. For that, you need to find out those constant values c1, c2, c3, c4, right? Because you have four vectors and then you have a four scalars, and then you will have to find out c1, c2, c3, c4. Has anybody got the relation? See, you will get this one. Okay, equation I will write. Just tell me this. Okay, c1 alpha 1 plus c2 alpha 2, c3 alpha 3, c4 alpha 4 equal to 0. So from that I can have c1 times, okay, 3 comma 0 comma minus 3 plus c2 times minus 1 comma 1 comma 2, and then plus c3 times 4 comma 2 comma minus 2, and then c4 times 2 comma 1 comma 1 equal to 0. Okay, so now we have to just multiply everything, and then the final equation I am going to get something like this: 3c1 minus c2 plus 4 3c3 2c4 equal to 0, one equation, and then 0 times c okay, c2 plus c2 plus 2c3 plus c4 equal to 0, and then minus 3 times of c1 minus 3 times of c1 plus 2c2 minus 2c3 plus c4 equal to 0. So three equations with four unknowns we have. Now, what are the values of C1, C2, C3, and C4? Do you get this one? C1 is 2 or minus 2. It can be because you can multiply with minus. That is not an issue. And then C2 is 2. C3 is minus 1. C4 is 0. Do you get this? So C1, C2, C3, of course, you can just write as a matrix form. Maybe you try to reduce that. From the back substitution approach also, one can find out, right? From the back substitution approach also, you can see that C1, C2, C3, and C4 values also. Otherwise, also you know how to solve these equations. You can also directly also you can solve.
So we get C1 and C2 in terms of C3 now. So like we can put any value for C3.
Okay, so but then but that combination will be in terms of either it can have 1 by 2 or something like that. What do you get? You can you just tell me the exact value of that?
C1 equals to minus 2 C3. C2 equals to minus 2 C3. And C3 and C4 equals to 0.
Okay, so okay. So, but then arbitrarily, if you if you choose arbitrary value also one particular value, if you choose, then you just see that because I do not have this final solution of this because the final solution is like this. Whether this is true or not, I just want to know. I think from this it is clear that it has system has a unique solution. Not I don't think it has an infinite solution or something different solution. It has a unique solution because see whatever we have done earlier, that's the same thing only. You have a system of equation here. So this is something like that ax equal to 0 form. So this system will have a unique solution.
But sir, these are 3 equations and 4 unknowns.
But still I think you will get the answer from the back substitution because that is why if you are getting C4 is 0, but I think the rest of the values you will get. What about others? Did anybody get the different thing?
We just get the relation between the variables, sir.
Okay,
If one
okay,
variable,
okay. So therefore, okay. What? So the relation I'm getting like this. If this is true, then it's okay. It may happen that you are getting different things also. I'm getting relation alpha 3 equal to 2 alpha 2, 2 alpha 2 plus 2 alpha 1. Is that okay? Alpha 3 is equal because I'm having C4 value 0. So now I'm writing C1 is 2 alpha 1 plus 2 alpha 2 minus alpha 3 plus 0 equal to 0. So I'm getting from that alpha 3 equal to 2 times of alpha 2 plus 2 times of alpha 1. So maybe whatever values of C you get, all these things you get. Now can you just see the relations now? Whether this relation, maybe you can have all these values will be in terms of C1 also because you can okay. So just see the relation. At least you are getting this relation or not. Just verify that. So you use any approach, whatever approach you know, use that approach. Just you see that you are getting this relation.
Yes, sir.
That relation is correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next, this concept of linearly independent and linear dependent will be connected to your basis. Okay, and the basis will be connected to your dimension. Okay, and then once you have a dimension, we are going to discuss about a very important thing. Okay, the next class what we are going to discuss is that we are going to discuss about basis which are connected to linear independent and linearly dependent. And once the basic is defined, you can go for a dimension, this dimension, and then once the basis and the dimension is given, that we can also speak about if we take any two subspaces, we know all these three concepts can be combined together. If you take w1 w2 are subspaces, and then what is this dimension of this w1 plus W2. Okay, then addition. A dimension cannot be separated, so that's why the dimension of W1 plus W2, what will be this one equation. And then with respect to the conditions, there are two conditions one can assume that if W1 intersection W2, it can happen that it have no elements in that. Okay, no set is, so it can have that W1 W2 is equal to 0, or maybe it is equal to non-empty also one can consider. Okay, if W1 W2 which is equal to 0 means there is an intersection is there. Okay, those two conditions also one can consider whether it has an intersection or it doesn't have an intersection. So based on that, you can even discuss that whether it is having what kind of formula we have. Okay, the dimension of okay w1 plus w2. So I'm trying to say that all these concepts are connected to each other. Once you define going to define what is meant by the basis. Once you have the basis, now we are going to define the dimension. Once we are going to dimension, we will connect all these three concepts together: the dimension concepts, basis concepts, linear independent concepts, and then subspaces concept. And then by using all these four concepts, we are going to find out what is the dimension of W1 plus W2. Okay. Or W1 intersection W2, whatever dimension you want, we can just find it out by giving some explicit formula. Okay, for this W1 plus W2. So any question? Oh, that is correct. Yeah, 2c and minus c comma 0 is correct. Okay, of course you are getting that is okay, correct. So c you can take out. Then c is not equal to 0 because you are having a dependent. Then you will have 2 times of that, 2 times minus 1. That is correct. What is your answer is correct. Ishan Kumar, your answer is fine.